then we won't hear them anyway. And please join us. Um, my opening words this morning are probably the shortest ones you'll ever have. It's they are in the face of impossible odds. People who love this country can change it. That's from Barack Obama. And I've jumped the gun, but I was so excited about that. Actually, we have committee meetings first. For those of you who have information regarding the community that you'd like to share as committee moments, please raise your hand virtually or online or on the screen, and we will call on you. And I believe Martha is organizing that.
Yes,
Martha?
I'm going to watch. First, I'm going to call on Chris Reed, even though I see Judith and Ann with their hands up. Chris Reed received a special delivery this morning, and we would like her to open it now.
I'm muted and there we go.
There you go.
This was on my front porch.
Hopefully it's not taped up.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's got a balloon.
A balloon came out.
That's cool.
Oh, do this so people can see. This is an apron. Beautiful tie-dyed apron.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
For all those wonderful homemade treats she's going to continue making throughout the year for us.
A beautiful pie plate.
Oh, very nice.
Pretty.
That someone made with lots of love, I can tell. Lovely earrings.
Ah.
Goodness, I can't open it. Just a moment. Can't let the balloon go. Oh, that's adorable. And a King Arthur flower gift certificate for the baker in me for $100.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That is from your grateful board, and, you know, on behalf of the congregation and us for all the love and care and direction you gave us.
So this is just perfect. Thank you so much. You obviously know me well.
Yes.
And I've been baking this morning already for the board. So thank you. That's really wonderful. Thank you all so much. It's been a labor of love.
You know, I'm with the nominating committee, and if there is ever a way for me to entice people to be on the board or to take positions, I can just say, hey, Chris might very well make you some baked goods. So.
And happily so.
Thank you. Are there any other committee moments? I think Ann and who else had their hand up besides Ann? David McElroy. You're muted, Martha. Ann? I don't know.
Okay, now I unmuted. So I was just going to say on behalf of the women's group, our next virtual meeting is this Friday, the 10th at 7 o'clock on Zoom. So if you are not on the list and don't get the emails, you can email me Ann Packham at yahoo.com.
Martha seems to be frozen. Okay. Hi. Good morning. This is Judith, your Director of Religious Education. A little red in the face because of my camera. Just ignore that. I'm just happy, I guess. So for any of you that don't know it, I am taking a month's leave as of this afternoon. And during that time, religious education will continue. We have links in the newsletter, on the website, in the RE News. and Chloe and Jake and Taylor are all going to be seeing that that happens. You'll be getting automatically generated emails reminding you about that, and all the fun that will happen in that month's time. And you'll see me again the second Sunday of, well, you'll see me the first Monday of August and the second Sunday of August. So there you are. And I'm looking forward to a little breathing room. So.
And I hope I'm being heard. I'd like to thank Judith and wish her a wonderful time off. It'll be a lot of fun for her, we hope. And in the generous spirit that she has, this is an unpaid leave. So it will also help the beginning of our budget for this year. So we really appreciate that generous offer. That's not the main reason she's doing it. She has a lot of plans, but we benefit as well, and we appreciate it. And hopefully she'll come back reinvigorated and renewed and so happy. And we'll be very happy to see her. So thank you, Judith. And let's see, I had seen, oh, Chris.
Whenever.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to let everyone know that I came away from General Assembly with a really driving urge to talk about racism, white privilege, history, justice, equality, equity. And I would like to organize a group congregational read. I think it's something that would benefit all of us, and we can all grow together and learn together. And I see this as not just a one book thing, but as a series of books. And the first one I would like to start with is White Fragility. I would love it if everyone participated. You can get in line at the library. You can order books. We can order copies of the books through Beacon Press and perhaps get a discount. You can use Nooks and Kindles. If I could just get some idea of who would be interested, and how we could help you get the book, I'd really like to begin this journey with all of you. So thank you.
Me. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Do you have a question, Joey?
No, I'm agreeing that I'd like to be part of that as well.
Should we email you, Chris, your personal email now, or past president, or
whichever's best? I put out my email a lot, lcreid99@aol.com. Or you could just get a message into the office, and amazing Trista will get it to me.
Yes, you're right. Okay. You're right. My screen has shifted a little bit. Oh, there's Roberta. You had your hand up.
No, I was agreeing with Chris. Maybe I could be part of the.
Oh, great.
Fantastic.
Thank you. I thought I saw it up before. I'm coming back to you, David. Okay. Go ahead, David.
Okay, I just got muted again.
No, you're okay.
Oh, okay, all right, sorry. This Monday is the men's Zoom support group, 6:30, and look forward to seeing those men who want to support us and be with us on Monday at 6:30. And you can bring your food if you want to and eat in front of us. Carl usually cooks, so we might be having something to eat together. Thanks.
Oh, that sounds good. Evelyn, I'm unmuting you. Trying to. You may have to unmute yourself.
Trying.
Go ahead. One more time, Evelyn. Evelyn, you're still muted.
How's that?
That's
yeah.
perfect. Go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to mention, I'm very interested in the books that Chris mentioned. I did want to tell them White Fragility at the moment is very difficult to get because they have sold out. And I don't know if they're reprinting at this time, but when I tried to get another copy, they only would send, I I can't remember what you call it, but in other words, they sent it to your computer and you have to print it out or read it from the computer. But the books themselves right now are very difficult to get. So that was my statement.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm scanning for more hands waved. I see Crystal.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Parent support group, like we talk about every week, is going to happen tonight at 9 p.m. Definitely a safe space for us dealing with tiny humans and not so tiny humans at home right now, without summer camps necessarily to lean on. It's a great place to be able to work through parenting strategies or even just unload after a week. 9 p.m. tonight. I'm putting the link in the chat box right now. There it goes. Whoosh. I hope to see you guys tonight. And I just want to reiterate that parent support group is not only for people with children that are biological to them under the age of 18. It is open to anyone and everyone who fulfills a parenting type role for anyone in their life, regardless of age or direct relationship, or even if you just feel like a fur mommy sometimes, you're still welcome. So hope to see you guys tonight.
I do not see any more blue raised hands in the participant room or raised hands in person. I believe we're done. I would just like to say that there's a lot of messages here about Judith and Joy, your well-deserved break. And thanks for all your amazing gifts, love, and support. That was from Chris, but it applies to Judith as well. And we look forward to seeing you back in August. All right, I'm turning it over to you, Joey.
Okay. So we've had our committee moment. So I'm going to do my opening words again. See, I just got so excited when I saw these. Very simply, in the face of impossible odds, people who love this country can change it. And that was said by Barack Obama. Next, we're going to have our opening. Well, I don't know if we're going to have opening music, so we're going to light the chalice. The words are on your screen. I'm going to light a chalice here. If you have one, I recommend that you get it now. And repeat with me. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. And now, if you'll also join with me as we recite the words of our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. I'd like to welcome any guests we may have joining us today that I might not know, but if you are new to us, just know that you are welcome, most welcome, in our community. We are a lay-led congregation, and our services vary greatly from week to week. We look forward to the future when we can be together again in person, but we are grateful to have this platform that allows us to connect, even if it is not in person. Again, however, please know that you are welcome if you are a guest. If you would like to take a moment and just scan your screen a little bit so you can see who all is here, that would be fantastic. Since we're all muted pretty much, except for me, we're probably not going to be able to share greetings right now, but sometimes we do that at the end of service. So if you want to hang on for a few moments after the service, I'm sure you can kind of shout at each other. And also don't forget there's a chat room. And that leads us to our next part of the service, which is joys and concerns. Always a part of our service, the sharing of joys and concerns. If you have a milestone in your life that you wish to share, there's several ways you can do that. if you don't want to speak it and you would prefer to have someone else read it, you're welcome to. moment to remember those that we are holding in our hearts. Okay, in the next segment of our service, one of my favorite parts of the service every week, and today's presentation, from what I understand, is an incredibly inspiring video that I've actually had the opportunity to watch previously, and I can tell you, you're in for a treat. It is an amazing video, so please sit back, tune in, and listen carefully. Judith?
Morning again. Yes, we're going to watch a video. Let's start with Frederick Douglass, escaped from slavery in Maryland to become one of the leaders of the abolition movement in the Northeast. He was a well-respected speaker. He spoke out for emancipation as well as voting rights for everyone of every race and for women. Among his achievements, he was the first Black man to receive a vote for president at the 1888 Republican primary. The following video that Paul will be playing for us in a moment is of his descendants, his great grandchildren, reading aloud his speech about Independence Day. This relates directly to our service later this morning of our fifth principle. It also reinforces the voices of the youth who recognize that what happens now affects them and affects all of us. Listen to the voices of children who know the truth. Go ahead.
Do I look there or look there? Okay. Okay. My name is Alexa Ann Watson, and I am the great-great-great-granddaughter of Frederick
Douglass is my great-great-great-great.
I am the great-great-great-granddaughter of Frederick Douglass.
I am the great-great-great-great-grandchild.
I've been counting on my fingers since I was like 5.
Whenever you're ready, here we go.
This is the 4th of July. It is the birthday of your national independence and of your political freedom.
Fellow citizens, I shall not presume to dwell at length on the associations that cluster about this day. The simple story of it is that 76 years ago, the people of this country were British subjects.
Oppression makes a wise man mad. Your fathers were wise men, and if they did not go mad, they became restive under this treatment.
With brave men, there's always a remedy for oppression.
They succeeded, and today you reap the fruits of their success. The freedom gained is yours, and you, therefore, may properly celebrate this anniversary.
Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence?
Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us?
I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary.
Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common.
The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me.
The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me.
This 4th of July is yours, not mine.
You may rejoice, I must mourn.
Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions.
At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument is needed.
Oh, had I the ability and could reach the nation's ear, I would today pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke.
For it is not light that is needed, but fire.
It is not the gentle shower, but thunder.
We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake.
The feeling of the nation must be quickened.
The conscience of the nation must be roused.
The propriety of the nation must be startled.
The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed.
And its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced.
What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim.
To him, your celebration is a sham.
Your boasted liberty an unholy license.
Your national greatness, swelling vanity.
Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless.
Your denunciations of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence.
Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery.
Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings,
with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him
mere bombast,
fraud,
deception,
impiety,
and hypocrisy. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. Allow me to say in conclusion, notwithstanding the dark picture I have this day presented of the state of the nation, I do not despair of this country.
This speech was written almost 170 years ago, but this part of it is still extremely relevant, especially with today's protests.
I think that when people are oppressed, they feel silenced, and if someone feels silenced, they get angry. There are certain tactics that you need to use to get people to really hear your voice, and it's not always going to be just like a very calm discussion.
I think he's mostly talking to the people who are already on his side, but believe that they can still try to talk this out, or that things are still justifiable. I know a lot of people at the time were saying, and people now are still saying, that it's not as bad as it could be.
While the 4th of July probably does not feel the same to me as it does to others, I wouldn't say that it has no meaning, because it is the time when America as a country became free from another country. But I would say that it's not the time in which I gained my freedom.
He had a lot of hope, especially for his age. And I'm getting to the point in my life where I'm only 20 years old, but I'm exhausted. I have these thoughts like, will we ever really get to this point? Or is this really something that we should actually spend our time fighting for?
Somebody once said that pessimism is a tool of white oppression, and I think that's true. I think in many ways we are still slaves to the notion that it will never get better. But I think that there is hope, and I think it's important that we celebrate Black joy and Black life, and we remember that change is possible, change is probable, and that there's hope.
Wow.
So in the link, in the chat, you'll see a couple of opportunities to be able to watch that video again, either directly at the link or by going to our YouTube video stream later today when it's running, when the recording is running again there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Gives me goosepimples. I listened to it before and had the same reaction. It really is very moving and very powerful. At this point, after Time for All Ages, we will have our interlude and offering. During the interlude, you can have the opportunity to make a donation. Donations and pledges can be made on our website. There's a big donate button up at the top and tells you the different ways that you can donate. Of course, you can always send checks by mail. That's what I've been doing. Um, you can pay with a credit card, obviously, if you do it online. Um, Anytime you would like to make a donation to this church, we are very grateful. We appreciate it. We had a successful pledge drive. That's really, the pledges start this month, so thank you for that. And we also do a share the plate. So if you make a donation just on Sunday for the service, our share the plate recipient this month is the UUA's Black Lives Matter Coalition, the one that's associated with the UUA. So please be generous as you give, and we can listen to some lovely music now. Cool. Thanks. Thank you so much. And now, if you'll join me, it's time for our presentation. We have a special service this morning presented by three of our very capable members. We will start off with Ann Packham, our new vice president, who will provide some historical background as to the 100th anniversary of the first National Women's Caucus. She will be followed by one of our newer members, the very capable Ann Feldheim, who, as a member of the League of Women Voters, will explain the League's advocacy. Finally, our incredibly hardworking new president, Martha Kirby, will cover the UU the Vote initiative of the UUA. At this time in our nation's history, their topics are crucial for our understanding of and duties towards the country in which we live. And I might remind us that they are also very much in sync with our values and our principles. You only have to look through the principles to see how they coincide so well with our government, with our way of life, and with what we hold dear. So, ladies, if you will take it. Ann?
Thank you, Joey. And I also wanted to add, we have a last minute addition to our service today, which is my daughter, Amelia Packham, who will give a follow-up to my comments about the women's right to vote. So just to add her in there. Also, I don't know if some point Patrick is gonna, I just have a couple of very minimal slides, but the first slide is a picture of the shirt that I'm wearing, which of course on the Zoom, you can't see. If we were in the building, you could see me wearing this lovely shirt, but this is the shirt that I'm wearing right now about the 19th Amendment. So, so when Martha asked me to participate in this service, I was trying to think back about when I actually got involved in political work for the first time. I remember in high school, in our civics class, we were allowed to get extra credit if we made phone calls on behalf of one of our local candidates. And I really enjoyed that. And I kind of wonder whether that would be even allowed today or not, because of partisan people being concerned and about people picking the wrong party or having their kids do something. So it's so interesting how times have changed. But I got really, I think, involved with getting, voting and politics in the 1990s when I was in graduate school at the University of Michigan. I was a member of the National Women's Political Caucus. And the National Women's Political Caucus was founded in 1971. It is a multi-partisan grassroots organization, and their goal is to increase women's participation in the political process. The idea is that if more women participate, the status of women will be amplified in policies and choices that are made by our government. So the caucus recruits and trains and supports pro-choice women candidates at all levels of government, whether that be the local elections, judges, state courts, and we've seen how important our judges are these days, because sometimes policy that's chosen by the people is overturned by judges. They also support people who do lobbying and campaign organizing. So I haven't really been that involved with them lately because I'm now do stuff with the League of Women Voters that Marianne's going to talk about later. But I think that's where I sort of first got involved in politics. And for me, the right to vote and my beliefs in feminism are kind of all tied up into one. I don't see them sort of as separate things in my life. So 2020 does mark the 100th year anniversary of the women's right to vote. And thank you, Patrick, for putting that slide up. So I was inspired when I got to see a preview of this PBS documentary that's starting tomorrow on, WUCF or any PBS station, called The Vote. It's about the women's suffrage movement, and this is a little picture from that documentary. So if you have a chance to watch, I think it's playing over 2 nights, so you may have to DVR it if you can't stay up that late. But I thought it was very interesting because one of the running commentaries of the show is that in the history books we read that women were granted the right to vote in 1920. When the word granted makes it sound like, hey, they just got it all of a sudden, when really it was fought for. It was a battle. It was not something that just sort of happened through the normal political processes. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And a fun fact that I was reading about, I was reading the background of the documentary, is that prior to 1776, women had the right to vote in all of the colonies. And it was only through the late 1700s into the early 1800s that the men in power, and I'm not trying to bash white men, but I'm married to one, but they kind of try to do everything they can to take votes away from people or take people's power away. So by 1807, every state constitution in the United States denied the women the right to vote. So the women's movement decided that they needed to do something about that, and really kicked off their efforts in 1848. And with the women's rights convention. It was held in Seneca Falls, New York, and we had the privilege of going to visit that museum there when we lived in upstate New York for a year. And that museum basically chronicles the story of the struggles there that were taking place at that time to not only get the women's right to vote, but all of that period was wrapped up in abolition of slavery and generally getting rights for people that were being denied, whether it be based on race, whether it be based on gender, or other, whether it be based on their past, whatever it was all kind of tied up together. one of the organizers of that convention was Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who worked with a lot of famous UU women at the time. And we're really lucky that a lot of Unitarian Universalist women were part of the suffrage movement. We have a long history of being the leaders in that movement, so I'm very proud of that. So that convention basically dealt with, sending a lot of speeches and making a lot of petitions to Congress, trying to get women's right to vote. Again, many of the women that were involved with that were also involved in the abolitionist movement at the time. In 1870, but things went on there. But then we had, we had Civil War, and a lot of other things happened in our history, and that kind of got put on the back burner, I guess, in historical purposes, until 1870. The 15th Amendment was actually passed, the 15th Amendment Constitution, which prohibits the federal government and any states from denying a citizen the right to vote based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Right? So the 15th Amendment granted voting rights to African Americans, but to men only at that time. So this actually created a pretty big split within the women's suffrage movement, because some people saw it as, well, this big, huge, goal that had been achieved by African Americans having the ability to vote, but the fact that women were left out really created a big sort of rift within the movement. And people just basically thought it was unfair that women still were denied the right to vote based on sex. And another little fun fact about Unitarian Universalists, Susan B. Anthony, who was born a Quaker but became a Unitarian later, she was actually arrested in 1872 for casting a vote in the election for president because she was a woman. So the first time that anything actually really made it to the federal government in terms of an amendment was in 1878. A constitutional amendment was introduced, but it failed at that time. So we have a long way to go. Fast forward to the early 1900s, the suffrage movement was active again, and particularly around the inauguration, both times, of Woodrow Wilson. I thought that was kind of interesting in the documentary that they showed these different movements of women coming from all different parts of the country by all different methods, pony and some walking from different places to come to Washington, D.C. And it was pretty much the first big political march on Washington that ever was. It was in 1913, right around the time of the inauguration of the new president. And the whole purpose was, in their words, to march in the spirit of protest against the present political organization of society from which women are excluded. According to the different history sites, between 5,000 and 10,000 marchers were there. And they basically overshadowed the whole inauguration of Woodrow Wilson. Actually, it wasn't in January, it was in March. Again, during this parade, there was a lot of back and forth about how to include African-American women, and African-American women were excluded and asked to march at the back of the parade. And some did, but there was still this sort of ongoing tension between women's rights and this feeling of, well, what's more important? We have to fight for women's rights versus all women's rights going on there. So there was a really important tension that was going on. Nothing occurred during Woodrow Wilson's first presidency. I guess other things took over. But again, when he was inaugurated in 1917, there was another parade. Later that year, on November 15th, 33 women were taken into action. So they continued to picket. There wasn't just the parade, but they were picketing the White House for a long period of time on something called the Night of Terror, where many of the women were thrown into jail and many of them tortured. Some were force-fed, beatings occurred, and this sort of thing. And that got into the national press. And it was believed that because this finally got into the front pages of mainstream media, that this suffrage movement was being treated this way and tortured and denied their rights, that finally things started to move. And the 19th Amendment passed the House and the Senate and was finally ratified in 1920. It officially recognized women's right to vote. And it's also important from the documentary, they talked about how this was This was achieved in the background of all the Jim Crow laws that were being enacted at that point to try to take away the vote from African Americans. So those two kind of things were constantly at odds with each other. It's important to also know that while many women were able to head to the polls after this, the amendment did not give full voting rights to all women. Women of color, immigrants, and lower income women were often deterred by the voting laws and also show social pressure not to turn up to the polls. Also, Native American women were not considered US citizens until 1924 and therefore not permitted to vote until then. Also, women who were convicted of a crime were unable to vote, even if they completed their sentences. So I think that kind of segues into what Mary Ann's going to talk about later on, about how so much work is done to get the vote, but there's a lot that takes place to take away that vote, and how important it is that we exercise it. And now I wanted to introduce my daughter Amelia. Amelia participated in a speech contest that she submitted to the Orange County Bar Association, and she actually won the first prize, and happens to be about the 19th Amendment. So I asked if she would read that speech today, and she agreed.
Hello. So this is my speech from the Orange County Bar Association contest. The ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920 marked a monumental moment in our nation's history. It declared to women across the country that you are valid, you are heard, and most importantly, you are people. Before the 19th Amendment was added to the Constitution, women were viewed as second-class citizens in almost every aspect of society, from limited economic opportunities in the workforce to tight restrictions on education. The 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote just 1 century ago, still empowers women such as myself across America today as we continue to advocate for equality on both large and small scales. One of the largest ways the 19th Amendment encourages women to continue advocating for equality today is in the fight for equal pay. The gender pay gap, as defined by Harvard University, is female workers earning 89 cents on the male worker dollar, and is even larger when racial inequalities are included. While this is a disheartening number, women across the country have never let this stop them from advocating for equal pay for equal work, as more and more continue to go into fields previously dominated by men, including medicine, finance, and law, in order to make a change. While the 19th Amendment only specifically mentioned voting, it truly signified equality in all aspects of society, and to this day allows these women to walk into a room with confidence and empowerment, knowing that they have just as much of a right to be there as their male counterparts. This has significance across the country, as little girls are inspired by their mothers, sisters, and aunts, who choose to go into these professions despite any of the depreciating notions they may receive. This has led to monumental change, as women now make up both a majority of law and medical school students today. Change is also being made on a smaller scale as well. Speaking from a personal level, the 19th Amendment has had significant ramifications in my life. As a woman, I have faced both the triumphs and shortfalls of this amendment. I participate in public forum debate, which allows me to voice my opinion on some of the most important issues of this century, including pharmaceutical prices, energy resources, and geopolitical conflicts. Even 100 years ago, it would have been unimaginable for a woman to be voicing her opinion on matters that were typically reserved for men. This amendment is a reminder that I am just as valid in debate as my predominantly male opponents. This reminder is often needed, as despite my success in this activity on a national and state level, I still receive commentary about the length of my skirt and bossy behavior that male competitors simply do not hear, and instead are praised for being assertive. However, despite the disparaging comments that I receive, I am able to reflect upon the many hateful phrases that were hurled at the suffragettes who fought for the 19th Amendment, such as Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, who, despite how demeaning and belittling those comments were, never let anyone tell them that a woman should be quiet. I take inspiration from these women every single time I debate and speak, as a reminder to never let anyone tell me that what I'm saying shouldn't be heard. While the 19th Amendment has had a tremendous impact on the empowerment of women, there are still shortcomings that must be addressed. I remember at the mere age of 13, knocking on door after door, standing in Walmart parking lots, and relentlessly calling people on the phone in order to encourage them to register to vote, ahead of the 2016 election. And on the night of that fateful day, I wore my A Woman's Place is in the White House shirt that I proudly wear in front of you today as I watched the polling results pour in. As it quickly became clear what direction the results were going in, I felt utterly hopeless. I thought, how is it that women have had the right to vote for around a century now, even though they should have had it from the beginning, and yet a woman has never been president? Instead of turning that despair into nothing, I decided to fight even harder. I worked on the campaign for Representative Anna Eskamani, encouraged my friends to register to vote for the upcoming election, attended various protests, and made sure to wear at least one political shirt every week of the school year in order to inspire conversation and debate to inform others of my beliefs. Although I, unfortunately, will not be able to vote in the upcoming election, I will do whatever I can in order to make my voice heard in other ways. Because as children, we truly are the future of this country, and the decisions made about our future can no longer only be reserved for only a small minority. Despite the prevalent gap inequality that the world still faces, the 19th Amendment acted as a stepping stone for women in an ever-important fight for justice. It empowers millions of women, along with myself, to always persevere and to never give up. The 19th Amendment to this day represents the importance of even a few voices against the shouts of many. I leave you today with a quote from one of my favorite activists, Malala Yousafzai, who perfectly sums up the importance of this amendment. She declares, "We cannot all succeed when half of us are held back." Thank you.
Amelia, thank you. This is Ann Feldheim. That was awesome. You're a hard act to follow. And I wish you every success. So for everyone, you may not know me. I've been a new member. I came in the fall. I joined in early in the year. A little bit about my background. I came because of the values, because knowing and 7 principles, those really are the ones that I have used to lead my life. A little bit about my background. I spent 30 years in nursing, where I learned servant leadership and very much the whole idea of justice and equality and working with individuals. At age 50, I went back for a doctorate in public administration, and I taught at UCF for over 20 years in public service, very much focusing on all of the supporting democracy, on social equity, on integrity in government, and supporting the Constitution. When I retired, I gravitated very quickly to the League of Women Voters. And could we have the PowerPoint on the screen? I'm not sure who's doing that. Thank you. So the League of Women, keep coming. I guess we're coming to the PowerPoint, but the League of Women Voters actually was established 100 years ago on Valentine's Day in 1920. And there we are. So the mission of the League of Women Voters is to empower voters and defend democracy. And I'm going to be talking about both the national, the Florida, and the local chapters. So the national is, and all League of Women Voters are nonpartisan, and the mission is to expand voter access, fight voter suppression, champion fair redistricting, increase voter registration, and educate voters. And if you're not aware, the vote411.org is a place that all of you can go. It is both national, state, and local. So it's found at your local chapters. You also can go on any of the League of Women Voters website. And you will find there information on all of the candidates in the various elections. You'll also find information on any of the special issues that you need to vote on. So the League of Women Voters Florida has been established in 1939. They have been very active. They were very active in working with Amendment 4 on the felons' rights and did a lawsuit against the state that was trying with the Senate bill to hamper that. Currently, that is in litigation, and again at the federal, sent to a federal court for a decision. But their current initiative is to vote by mail. With the pandemic and the difficulty of the quarantine, people are encouraged to vote by mail. All you need to do is to call your supervisor of elections. In Seminole County, where I live, it is an automated system where you can just indicate that you would like your ballot sent to you. We encourage you to do that. Also, vote early. If you do the vote by mail, send it in as soon as it is possible. Also, if you can vote early in person, we encourage you to do that. Again, the vote411.org has all of the information that you will need. There are local chapters in both Orange and Seminole counties. On a regular basis, they have candidate forums and monthly speakers so that you can go to their websites. You do not need to be a member. I encourage you to be a member because you stay very current with what is happening. But you can hear local candidates. You can attend forums on topics of interest. We had Dr. Terry Fine speak in Seminole County last week on the whole idea of voter suppression and gerrymandering. So it was extremely informative. We encourage you to do that. The other I have down on the screen is the Brennan Center for Justice at New York University. This is an independent, nonpartisan law and policy organization. And they do research into all of the very areas of voter suppression, gerrymandering, redistricting, and current issues. They also have a cadre of lawyers that work with the League of Women Voters when they are going to challenge in the courts any of the issues that might be hampering. And we've seen this currently in Georgia with the restrictions during the last primary that they had there, with long lines, with difficulty in counting ballots. We also saw it in Kentucky, where they closed polls and thousands of people were not able to vote because they reduced the numbers. So the issues are very real. What I would leave you with are just a few takeaways. First, your vote matters. That not voting is a vote for someone else's values. So the values of the UU, if you believe in those, then do your research, find out which of the candidates support your values, which initiatives support your values. Read in depth. Many of the issues on the ballot, especially amendments, are very convoluted. You need to really do research to find out what is the exact intent. What is the intended consequence or unintended consequence that might be there? So know the candidates in the issue. Vote by mail or vote early. And the other is, just as Amelia said, get others to vote. However you can encourage people to do this. We are currently in a very divisive time. And when you look at the divisiveness, it's about values. It is a values conflict. What do we value? So the way that you can make your voice heard most effectively is to vote and to vote your UU values. And with that, I'm turning it over to Martha, who's going to talk about Vote UU.
Thank you, Marianne. That was wonderful, as was Anne and Amelia. I'm so impressed. I've heard all about your debating skills, and I can't wait to be invited to a local competition to hear you in action. Such a well-needed skill in today's society. So thank you all. I hope I have something to add. So voting, expressing our values and opinions in local, state, and federal elections is both a right and a responsibility of all U.S. citizens. Garrett Epps wrote an article in the Atlantic magazine in September 2012 entitled Voting, Right or Privilege, in which he stated the Constitution mentions the right to vote 5 times. Judges and voter ID law proponents don't seem to be getting the hint. As mentioned already by Marianne and Anne and Amelia, voter suppression is still alive and well almost 8 years later. When combined with voter fatigue and apathy, as in my vote won't really matter, the lack of participation in our voting process could lead to election results that might not match our values, desires, or vision for our country. As Unitarian Universalists, we are part of a long tradition of social action. We don't always get it right, and we don't always agree. Yet together, we have hope and optimism that we can get it right and move our world forward. How do we do this? Individual spiritual practices, setting aside contemplative time to really dig deep into our own beliefs and values through reading and reflection. Participating in discussion groups, particularly those in our community led by people from different backgrounds than ourselves, and listening to the voices from the margins. Joining groups that work towards common goals. For example, our Unitarian Universalist Association. Hopefully my slide is up. Patrick, thank you. After all, we are UUs. UU the Vote provides many resources to inspire us to encourage others to vote, remind them of deadlines, and assure them their vote does matter. Our current UUA president, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, said that for Unitarian Universalists, this is faithful, moral action, because democracy and the right of all people to have a voice and a vote are at the very heart of our 7 principles. This work is about the inherent worth and dignity of every person. It is about restoring right relationship with the planet. It is about our commitment to justice and equity for all people. We are called to courageously embody the deepest values of our faith with our hearts, bodies, and spirits, while building toward an abundant future in which all are free and flourishing. Another place you can look is Faith in Public Life, another organization in which I participate. They have hosted several interfaith group discussions in Central Florida, and hopefully there will be more as our Interfaith Council reorganizes. For non-faith, atheist, and humanist voices, consider the Central Florida Free Thought community, whose vision statement is governments which neither promote nor denigrate any religion, a society that values equality, reason, and secularism, and a flourishing global humanist community. And we are Unitarian Universalists. If I were to conduct a poll of our congregation's members, I would expect to find that a majority, if not all, members 18 and above are registered to vote, that most of our members do vote in all elections, and that most of our members decide their votes based on values and belief systems that honor our principles. How can we work to ensure that all our other eligible community members who have a right to vote understand the importance of exercising this right? How do we share the principles and values of our UU faith that are so important to understand when exercising this right? Living our faith out loud, demonstrating our principles in service and in community, connecting with more than the members in this virtual space. That's where I want to put my energy. I would love to see our members step up and lead our own UU the Vote team. Take some time to check out the resources offered and how you can help. Let's do it together. I'd like to close by reading a prayer written by Reverend Ashley Horan, the Organizing Strategy Director of the UUA, where she works with a team of faithful organizers and movement builders to shape the justice work of Unitarian Universalism, to be spiritually grounded and politically effective. Her prayer is entitled, "Another World is Possible." We say it again and again, even when the proof lies somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond our reach, beyond our imagination. This is our faith. Another world is possible. Not somewhere else, another world, another lifetime, but here and now, for us and for all. Another world is possible. There is no single path toward that world, no one strategy or approach that will restore balance, heal brokenness, sow wholeness, free creation. There are many routes toward liberation, toward freedom. But the abundance of options does not absolve us of the responsibility of acting. Another world is possible. The call, the duty of each moment in history is to discern who are we and what can we bring with humility, integrity, faith. What is the context and how can we address it with agility, resilience, skill? What is the vision and how can we realize it with accountability, relationship, joy? Another world is possible. In this time of despair, of fear, of collapse, this time that is both like every other era and like no other time in history, it is audacious to declare our faith and to commit our work to a world that is more free, more just, more whole. But we are an audacious people in good company with many kin, and we are ready to show up and work hard and stay humble and make friends and hold the vision, starting here, now, today, with us and persevering however long it takes until that other world is not only possible, but another world is here. Thank you.
I would like to thank Anne and Amelia and Marianne and Martha for that amazing presentation. You certainly give us a lot to think about, give us some context, and certainly give us a great deal of inspiration as we move forward. Thank you again so much. And now we will extinguish the flame. Please say these words with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And my closing words come from Eleanor Roosevelt. True patriotism springs from a belief in the dignity of the individual, freedom and equality, not only for Americans, but for all people on the earth. She was a great lady and a really smart one. And we've heard from a lot of smart ladies today. So it was wonderful to see all of your faces. It was lovely to be here and share some time with you. And with that, I guess if they're going to open up so that everybody can talk, you can all wave and say hi to other people.